Hi there you guys, and welcome to another video. I've done my porridge, now it's time to take a look at Roman Lancaster. Today, Lancaster is a modern, thriving and cosmopolitan city. For many years. Later on, they had equal success with Reebok trainers. The castle that you can see behind me is old, but it's not the beginning of the story. You can probably guess who was responsible for that. Yes, of course, the Romans were here. They established a fort here in the 1st century, and that went through various iterations. We're going to go and have a look to see if we can find any remnants of this city's Roman past. Well, yes, of course there are remnants here, otherwise the Roman Gazette wouldn't have bothered to visit. I've ruined my shoes, so you don't have to. Behind me is the Roman bathhouse, and we're going to get the fake drone up to take a look to it. Believed to have been part of a praetorium or possibly a mansio, a very large posh house. The bathhouse has quite good remains visible. You can see the underfloor heating system there. Unfortunately, like so much of 21st century Britain, there's litter everywhere, no civic pride, no money, and what money there is spent on vanity projects. I think this is my favourite bit here. You can see a ditch cut through the bathhouse, and that was when they refortified with stone in the 4th century, and they demolished the bathhouse and put a new wall right the way through it. This was because of the increasing threat of the Irish. But undoubtedly my very favourite piece here is this great big lump of masonry next to the bathhouse. Known in latter centuries as the Wherry Wall, this was a corner bastion of the final stone-built iteration of the fort, and it's all that survives above ground of that structure. William Stukeley very frustratingly reports in his writings from the 18th century that they were dismantling huge remains of the Wherry Wall in Bridge Street in the 1700s. Those Georgians really could be idiotic. It's thought to have been a corner bastion, so there would have been heavy artillery manned here on this corner of the fort. Now, there is uncertainty about what the Romans called their version of Lancaster, so before we finish here, we're going to go and see if we can work that out for ourselves as an exclusive for the Roman Gazette. The earliest recording in writing for the name Lancaster, was in the Domesday Book, but we now know the Romans were here 1,000 years before that. Loon stands for the river, castra is referring to the Roman fort. Now, briefly, we're going over to Peter, who I've met. He wants to have a word with you all.
I've noticed wherever you go in this country, for example, this is the cathedral, they're quite vast grounds, and yet there's no benches for the public. And frequently, when they do occasionally put benches in public places, like for example on the promenade at Morecambe, they're situated either in the shade or in the wind. It's so difficult to find a seat in the sun. And there's not one seat all the way around the grounds of this cathedral, Lancaster Cathedral. There's not one seat for the public, and this is typical of this country. It's almost like they want to keep the people moving and they don't want to strew likes. And I thought, I get around a bit and I'm thinking, am I imagining this? I'm going to think it's a policy. I really am. And there's something not quite right about it, in my opinion, anyway.
Thanks for that, Peter. And now we're off to see if we can work out what the Romans called this place. So the milestone doesn't tell us the name of Roman Lancaster, but it does have this L. So the L on the milestone perhaps suggests that whatever the Romans called it, it also began with L, perhaps something to do with the loon. Some people have suggested lunium, but others say it's calunium. I think the Roman Gazette plumps for lunium. I hope you've enjoyed this week's vlog. Like, subscribe and tune in next Sunday. Till then, stay safe and tuned. Oh, Jesus. Hey, have you heard about the Roman soldier who was manning this bastion one day? He was feeling a bit under the weather, so he shouted out to his boss, "Can I go home? I'm not feeling very well."